Good evening and welcome to the Drive at 5 on IntellectualRadio.com/iHeart radio station. I'm your host, Roman, and we have a terrific show planned for you today. First, the forecast from our IntellectualRadio.com Weather Center. Today, they said partly sunny. I don't see partly sunny skies out there. It's snow showers out there. I don't know where they get it from. And much colder, high 38 degrees tonight. Mainly clear and cold, low 28 degrees tomorrow. Sun yielding to clouds, brisk and chilly. A few showers or two in the afternoon. High of 45 degrees. Tomorrow night, cloudy and windy. A couple of late night showers. Low 42 degrees. The rest of the week forecast looks like this. Wednesday, mostly cloudy. Brief showers. High 55 degrees. Thursday, a rain or snow mix with showers here and there, cloudy and cooler, 43 degrees. And on Friday, cold with a snow shower. Ugh. High 38 degrees. The Drive at 5 is also part of the Monday Night Mogul with Straight No Chaser with Rhea Ray Harris at 6 p.m. May Says with Maze Jackson at 8 p.m. And Keeping It Real Estate with Harold Arnold at 3 p.m. One Sister to Another with Angela Johnson now has a new date and time, Sundays at 10 a.m. Monday Night Mingle is back on Monday nights at 7 p.m. The Drive at 5 is also part of the fabulous 5 at 5, only on IntellectualRadio.com/iHeart radio station. Today, my guest is a Chicago police officer with the Elite Organized Crime Narcotics Division. Please give a Drive at 5 welcome to Officer Joe Shaw. Welcome to the Drive, sir.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Please give IntellectualRadio.com/iHeart radio station your background.
Well, I've 23. This is my 24th year with the Chicago Police Department. Before that, I worked in corporate America, and currently I own two businesses. And I like to always begin this here with a quote from Dr. Martin Luther King. And that quote is, "Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about the things that matter." And the people of the city of Chicago matter to me. And of course, the Chicago Police Department matters to me, because I know for a fact that we can have a better police department with the right leadership.
Speaking of that, the mayor promised transparency in the search of a new Chicago police superintendent in the wake of the Laquan McDonald case. However, you are on record saying the search is not transparent. Why you think the search is not transparent?
Well, the people want to make sure that they have a qualified leader who will be able to turn the police department around, challenge that culture, and also bridge the gap between the Chicago Police Department as well as the citizens of the city of Chicago, the community. And you have to be transparent in that. So when you just bypass the process and you choose someone that was not even a candidate, then, people become, I guess they become complacent. They just figure that, wow, we try to give our best, but yet it never really pans out. So now people are just challenging the mayor and the whole system and everything, saying, well, listen, now we want to make sure that we have a person who can lay out a plan. What is the plan for moving the city of Chicago forward? What is the plan for changing the department? What is a step-by-step plan to making the Chicago Police Department better?
What is your plan? You also applied for this position. Take us through the process. What the board's supposed to do when they're selecting a police superintendent. Take us step by step.
Well, the board issues through the City of Chicago's website that there's an opening with the for superintendent of police, and ask for applicants to apply. To my understanding, it was more than 39, and I think it came down to 39, then it dwindled down to even more. I mean, less than that. So they give you several essay questions, or in this case, it was 8 this go around, to find out about the candidate, about your vision, and more importantly, it was about how to bridge the gap between the police department, how to change the police department, and how to make it a better force and be community orientated as well. So you go through that entire process, you answer those questions, and then they select from that pool people who they want to, talk to, interview, and choose as the 3 candidates. Now, I'm not sure how they selected the 3 finalists. Um, but they did what they did. However, Chicago had made it very clear. The residents was saying, "Hey, listen, we want someone from the inside. We don't want an outsider." And then furthermore, they were like, "Well, we didn't want anyone from the command staff because they felt that over the years, people who have been in the command staff knew of problems, but no one has ever took the leadership to stand up for what was right."
Period.
Period.
When Rahm Emanuel announced the board, what went through your mind at that point in time when he announced the candidates that will sit on the board without even talking to community leaders, pastors, giving them recommendations?
To tell you the truth, the mayor and the system, the way it's set up, gives the mayor a lot of latitude to pretty much do it the way that he wants to do it. But there should have been input from the community, from various sectors of the community, as to the selection of the board. Well, fast forward, you got the board. It's created. A lot of people at the police accountability meetings, which I was at every last police accountability meeting because I was out there to listen. I never once got up and spoke or anything of that nature. I was taking notes. And what I heard across this city is that people want to feel safe. They want to be able to sit in their homes without the fear of a bullet coming through the window. They want to be able to sit in their vehicles without the same fear. They also want to be able to, the children play outside. They want to be able to go to and from work without the possibility of being stuck up, being robbed, or any of that nature. So therefore, my motto is to make Chicago safe.
You said earlier you have a plan. Can you give us a detailed version of that plan?
Well, I could try to sum it up for you because to lay it out it would be longer than this segment is, I guarantee you. But first of all, the plan starts with having that beat officer stay on that beat for a year before they can make any types of transfers or move or anything. The way it's pretty much set up now from the standpoint of administration is that it's just the beats are all covered. So if one night you have an officer that's working maybe over here, and then the next night beat officer is somewhere way out south or some of that nature, that doesn't do anything for the community. The community must know who their beat officers are. Okay, now the beat officer is the first line of defense out there. So which means they should be out there making sure that they're able to better the lives of the people in which they are patrolling their beat in those areas. So because when I was working in the early 90s to bridge that gap, I've gone through this, so I know it firsthand. Okay, and these are the things that we did. We made sure that we knew every pothole, every tree that needed to be trimmed, every lights that were out, every abandoned building, every synagogue, every church, so forth and so on. And when we find these types of situations, we wrote it up. So if there was potholes, we made sure that the property department was notified so they can come out there and immediately deal with that situation. And the same thing with abandoned buildings. We would get out the squad car 2-3 o'clock in the morning, and we would go up in these buildings because a lot of things could be taking place. And if a good beat officer is astute enough and they know their beat, well, they know when they last night when they worked that place was boarded up, that building was boarded up. They come back to work that night and it's unboarded. Something's probably going on. So pretty much the beat officer, front lines of defense out there, and you have to look at it like this here. Now we're talking about accountability factor. Okay. That beat officer cannot leave that beat until he or she is properly notified their supervisor. Okay. Now the supervisor has to monitor that beat by either bringing in a sector car. Okay. A sector car is the one who controls, there's so many beats within a sector. So the sector car controls all of those particular beats throughout that district. Okay, so that person, he or she, will cover for that officer while they go to lunch, while they might have to make a run, while they're in on an arrest, or things of this nature. Okay, now if they're not available, then the sergeant has to make sure that that beat is covered. Now you don't take a beat officer from another beat to come man that. You stay primarily, that beat officer cannot leave that beat until he or she has properly been notified to do so. And now it takes away from officers just running rapshod all over the place and doing things like, I mean, you know, a couple of years ago, you saw where a couple of officers were off their beat in another district, parlaying with a female, playing cards and drinking. No, with this here type of operation, it allows strict accountability. And that's what it's all about: supervision and accountability, and making sure that the officers are out there doing what they're supposed to be doing, which I commend the officers. Come in every day, put that uniform on, and do what they're supposed to do. We have about 90%, 95% that's doing just that. But however, you always, and this is in any field, have those that want to do things their way, but that will stop.
I'm going to play devil's advocate with a couple of things that you have said. You said accountability. You mentioned beat officers. It was a promise to the community that these beat officers will be on foot. That hasn't happened in majority of these hot zone areas. The other thing, when you call the district, they would say, in order to get you to know your beat, you have to attend these CAPS meetings. Not everyone can attend a CAPS meeting. So if the officers are continuing patrolling in their cars, which they're supposed to be out on foot, what's the problem here? What the community is missing? Because I'm just going to tell you like it is. It seems like we're being flim-flammed, bamboozled. And whatever promise that the superintendent and the mayor says, they say this all the time: we're going to put more officers on this beat. We're going to put more officers. They're going to start patrolling. And every community person or community leader would say, I see them right by on the main street, but not on the side street. I don't see them on foot.
Yeah. Well, with the CAPS program that I'm talking about, this isn't about foot patrol versus beat patrol. This is strictly beat patrol and foot patrol, because now we're talking about the officers getting out of their car. They're engaging with the citizens. They're paying attention to abandoned buildings and things of this nature. So that becomes effective when you have that beat officers that's out there that's constantly interacting with that particular beat, and he or she will get to know everyone on that beat. Now, you're right. A lot of people can't attend beat meetings and everything. However, if you have a good structure in place, they don't even have to attend the beat meetings. They will be a recipient of seeing the changes that are taking place on their beat, because it'll be laid out for them. They will start to see these abandoned buildings starting to be either reported or boarded up. Potholes repaired and things of this nature. Whatever it is that the complaints of the citizens on that particular beat are experiencing, then that beat officer has to have it written up and talked about and solved, because that's the only way that you can be effective. The other thing is, is that I would like for them to be also writing reports in regards to their beat. What have they done to make the citizens of their beat, which is the citizens of the city of Chicago, lives better and more effective? Now, that's a record. That's public record, and it could be used for an officer's evaluation. It could be used for any supervisor to come in and take a look and say, what's going on in this beat here? Well, I see something over here. Is that written up? So it's accountability across the board.
Again, playing devil's advocate here again. When you talk about community, you mentioned structure. What kind of structure in place? Are you talking about block clubs? Because some people call 911. They say call 311. And when they 311, it takes weeks, even months.
No,
for that to happen. What structure are you talking about? Because sometimes this to a CAPS officer, they are paid to handle their concerns.
Well, see, that's not the total structure. What I'm talking about is the officers writing these incidents up are making sure that they are handled. This isn't you call 311, you receive a number, and you just part of the overall pool of numbers that are out there, and it's no follow up and follow through to see that these incidents are taken care of. But when you have the beat officer, this is what we did. Okay, in the early 90s, we took Inglewood, the 7th district, from being being the highest crime-ridden area pretty much in the nation to record numbers below in terms of homicides and all of this, because we were out there engaged with the community. And our motto was, we're going to give the people of Inglewood the same type of police service that they would require anywhere else in the city of Chicago. So that has to happen across the board, especially in our African-American communities and the brown communities where people are feeling underserved by the police.
Getting back to the process of the police superintendent, do you think the African-American community, like I said before, was flim-flammed throughout this process of selecting police superintendent? And I have a follow-up after that.
Well, I couldn't say flim-flam. They wasn't a part of the process, and then what makes the process, the people being engaged with the political process, which, I'm just a policeman. I'm not into the politics and everything. So that's another area that needs to be discussed, with our local officials. However, people felt that they just weren't part of the overall process in that. And when you create that type of situation, it pretty much people, they feel like, well, what do I have? What is it? What's the worth? What really can we do to be engaged and be involved when in the last hour something can change?
I remember, and so does other people remember, seeing Mayor Rahm Emanuel at the special city council meeting banging on the podium. It reminds me of a Charlie Brown episode, the cartoon, where Lucy holds the football and tells Charlie Brown, kick the football. Mm-hmm. And African Americans are fooled again. Do you think African Americans are fools in believing the mayor has our best interests? One example is he appointed the police board and totally ignored their suggestions. He don't care what people think. And do you think he's bullying the community into his way of thinking? Because I know you're currently with the Chicago Police Force. And is it a bullying tactic because he's over you?
No, I don't know what was going through the mayor's mind when he decided to do that and not go with one of the three candidates. Now, however, he has said in the media that he was listening to the alderman. He was listening to police officers on the street, and in doing so, they wanted someone from the inside. Okay, now I think that was Eugene Williams, who was one of the three finalists. So something that I don't know of, um, the mayor maybe found out or chose not to select him and go with Eddie Johnson instead. But I don't know why he did not choose Eugene Williams and go with Eddie Johnson instead. And they're both insiders.
You don't think that he's like, again, playing the community? I'm giving you a black person. Be happy with it.
I can't answer for what the rationale was for his decision. You have to ask him.
Okay. You have gone toe to toe with the FOP regarding John Burge. You even filed a lawsuit against the FOP to stop paying his legal bills. You said in a statement regarding this issue, quote, Mark Donahue needs to step down immediately. He has divided the police department, and John Burge legal fees are being paid for actions were not within the scope of employment of a Chicago police officer, and certainly did not occur at the time when John Burge was a Chicago police officer. Do you want to elaborate on that quote to our listeners?
Well, basically, um, we know what the history of John Burge and the torture of black men. So overall, as an African American police officer, as a human being, I don't want to see no one tortured, black, white, Hispanic, Asian, what have you. No human being should be tortured and given to give a confession or a false confession. So if it had been, it could have been anyone, and I would have fought the FOP in regards to doing this here. When you have someone of John Burge's caliber, and the way that he has pretty much tarnished the reputation of the Chicago Police Department, then it's only right that somebody stand up. And that incident happened in 2008 when I took on the FOP and challenged the FOP and Mark Donahue. And when I told Mark Donahue that he should step down immediately, it was due to the arrogance of the union when I went down there to ask them and tell them that I represented a group of officers throughout the city of Chicago, and we felt that if you want to make a decision like this, it should have been put in front of the full membership. And the arrogance, the blatantness was that no, it stands the way it is. So I asked him once again, so are you telling me that you would not even put this before the vote of the full membership? And basically he said no. So I just told him like this here, well, I'll tell you what, you take a look at my face, because this will not be the last time that you see it. And within 24 hours, we had filed a federal lawsuit for them to come in and answer in regards to that.
The FOP recently hired Jason Van Dyke. He was the police officer who shot and killed Laquan McDonald. Will there be another lawsuit against the FOP because they are currently paying his legal bills and hiring him inside the police organization?
Well, I'm not sure if there'll be a lawsuit in regards to that, or I don't know if you're asking me would I file a lawsuit.
Will you personally file a lawsuit?
No, I will not be filing a lawsuit against the Fraternal Order of Police in regards to this here, because even though, and I've said this constantly, that it's not a good look, but the Fraternal Order of Police are in their boundaries to do such. And they did that also with LaTanya Haggerty years before. But and I've known officers who have gotten terminated and they didn't reach out to. So basically, they are within their rights to hire an officer. But at this magnitude, when you have a high profile case like this here, when you have someone who has pretty much just maybe murdered a child, for the FOP, the leadership, it questions the leadership. What would make you, do this? What would make you hire this person? Maybe you could have. There's other resources. There's other jobs that I'm sure that the FOP might have connections with, and I think that it should have been outside of the FOP and not being employed directly at the Union Station.
We're actually running out of time. I know you have to go. There is some breaking news. The mayor today recently sent out a statement to the Justice Department calling for a federal investigation regarding racial slurs over the police radio. What are your thoughts about that? And basically, let me go a little bit further on that. The ratio between white police officers and blacks black officers are not represented in predominantly black areas. And they're hearing stuff that they're not supposed to be saying, period. And when they arrest African-American young men and some women, they're hearing these racial slurs verbally.
So are you saying that that when someone is being arrested, they're hearing that directly out of the officer's mouth?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to clarify that. That might be taking place. Now, if that's the case, then we have to start making sure that we file complaints against officers who cannot conduct themselves accordingly. Okay. Now, at that point, you start building a history of problem officers, because if officers are having problems, or if they can't behave accordingly, or if they're mistreating the citizens of the city of Chicago, they have no place on the Chicago Police Department. They should find other employment. And as being the next superintendent of the Chicago Police Department, I sit here and I tell you that I will not tolerate any type of transgressions against the citizens of the city of Chicago. And that's i.e. if they're doing something to the citizens, or they're cursing them out, foul language, mistreating them, that's serious. And I will take those to heart.
Some people will argue, again, playing devil's advocate here. Okay, I want to complain about this particular officer. I'm being arrested. They're not going to take my complaint seriously. Who will?
Well, you have the ID can take the complaint. You can make sure that if you want a supervisor to take that complaint and they refuse, then you get that supervisor's name and badge. That's your right. That's your right.
And those are the steps.
Yes, those are the steps. Mm-hmm.
Any final words?
Well, I'm here to tell the people of the city of Chicago that if I am given the distinct opportunity to lead the Chicago Police Department as being the next superintendent, I will lead by what I call the 4 C's of leadership. That is courage, candor, competence, and commitment. And I thank you.
All right. And good luck to you, sir.
Thank you much.
When we come back on the Drive at 5 on intellectualradio.com/iHeart radio station, we will have TeQuila, Sahaya, Shabazz, founder and president, I butchered that name, I know, of the BRIJ Embassy. When we come back on the Drive at 5, thank you for the drive, sir.
Thank you.
And we're back on the on intellectualradio.com/iHeart radio station. The Drive at 5 continues. My next guest, she is the founder and president of BRIJ Embassy for Black America. Please give a Drive 5 to TeQuila Shabazz. Welcome to the Drive.
You got it. That's it. Thank you for having me.
It was an easy word to pronounce. That's why I got it. And plus, Rhea will beat me up if I said the other word. Please give intellectualradio.com/iHeart radio station your background.
Yes, okay. I am TeQuila Shabazz, and as you said, I am the founder and president of the BRIJ Embassy for Black America, which was formerly BRIJ Fund. We did a slight change in name just because we felt it called for the time. And what BRIJ is a cooperative with a few hundred members that work to eradicate poverty and build wealth in Black America. And we do this through the intentional and strategic redistribution of our capital, which is time, money, resources, skills. So as far as the Support Black movement go, we are definitely a part of that, but we extend the conversation beyond consumerism to include a more holistic approach to community.
During the 1960s and 70s, the Black community store owners had a sign that says Black owned and operated. At a time, Black owned and operated businesses were like a single percentile. That's where they were. But I did some research. They said now, according to the United States of Commerce states, African American owned and operated businesses has increased by 60.5% between 2002 and 2007. You see increases in Houston, New York, southern states, and including the Carolinas with Black owned and operated businesses. However, in Chicago, that is a different story. Why is that?
I don't know if it's a different story as much as it is whether or not the data has been collected. You see a lot of independent business owners that don't have the brick and mortar spaces. Chicago, and I'm women in this case. Black women, very recently, they reported that Black women are the fastest growing entrepreneurs in the country. You see, and then when you talk about Chicago, as that relates to Chicago, Chicago is home to the #1 or the largest segment of women entrepreneurs in the country. So what I see here is a large number of African American women business owners that are just popping up. And I think a lot of that is out of necessity. You know, we're underemployed, we're unemployed, opportunities aren't available to us across the board. And so I don't know if those numbers are necessarily accurate when you talk about businesses here in Chicago, because I see so many of them that are not documented, if you will. So we have to move businesses into creating legal institutions, for lack of better words.
You said it, I did.
And when I say legal, I mean, you know, you have your L3C or your incorporation, you're handing out receipts. In the Be Black Academy, which is a leg of the BRIJ Embassy, I call it our education leg, moving people from awareness to application. One of the ways that we track the spending of consumers is by having members post receipts. And a good number, like 30%, are like, well, I didn't get a receipt, or this person didn't have a receipt. So we're still operating in non-traditional ways. And I think that can skew numbers. So I don't know how accurate that is in comparison to
other cities.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
But I think by the end of the year, I'll have a better understanding, because in Houston right now, we have a large number of individuals that are representing down there with Black businesses, but just from the feedback that I'm receiving, it still doesn't seem as if the Houston market, and my Houston people that are listening, sorry if I'm wrong, doesn't seem as saturated as the businesses here in Chicago. We have many, 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 many businesses, from restaurants to services to apparel, jewelry, etc. So again, I think that the numbers may be skewed just because of the way that people conduct business.
The perception of Black businesses is they're rude, nasty, and they do the bare minimum. To uplift, you're going to say, to uplift their communities, the bare minimum. Why African Americans are so critical of their own, however, not critical from other races who treat Blacks even worse than their own kind.
Yeah, I agree with that. Number one, I think that we are extremely critical of our businesses. I think we're extremely self-critical of our communities. We're self-critical of each other. That's some deeply rooted conditioning, okay? So one of the things that I do to change that is, if someone has a bad experience at, let's say, Seaway Bank, they have a bad experience, that person comes back and they throw all Black businesses under the bus versus saying, this was my experience at Seaway Bank. This is why I don't support Black business, because they're this, and this. Versus if they have a bad experience at, let's say, Denny's, they'll say, this is why I don't support Denny's. They don't say, this is why I don't support white businesses. So it's retraining the way that we give feedback to our businesses, because I'm a person that supports right now at about 87 to 90% of my time and my money and my resources go into Black people and places. And I've had just as many positive experiences, which I'm very quick to talk about. And I encourage other people to talk about those good experiences, because we're quicker to talk about the negative and then lump all Black people in under that experience, So if I had a bad experience at grocery A and it was Black, then guess what? You're going to be lumped in. I'm going to be lumped in. Intellectual Radio is going to be dumped in.
I didn't say that, or else she did.
but it's true. When you say, this is why I don't support Black businesses, you are literally keeping that narrative going, and people are like, well, I'm not going to support a Black business either because they're rude, or the quality is bad. And I have not had that experience. As far as I can't say that is the majority of my experiences. It's equal to bad experiences in any other businesses.
So you're saying, let's change the mindset.
Let's change the language. Let's change the mindset. So
that's how you're gonna. Well,
that's one of the ways that we can start changing the way people view Black, supporting Black businesses. Don't lump them in as, this is why I don't support Black businesses. Provide constructive feedback to the business in which you had the bad experience. And then what I typically do with that is I will call the business and say, this is what the people are saying right now. What do we have to do to change that?
And it's up to the owner to change it.
It's up to the owner at that point to change it. I'm just I just have my ear to the ground, and this is what your consumers are saying. And sometimes, most times that's well received. Sometimes there's a level of arrogance. And then I have to remind them, because sometimes they think I'm the only one doing this, right? And I'm Black and you're going to support me. And I have to remind them, like, you have 4 other people that are competing for this business, and very easily we can redirect people there. Because when it comes to the Support Black movement, it goes beyond just supporting someone because they're Black. We have to make sure that they're offering good service, quality products, and also redistributing back and reinvesting back into the community. That's equally as important. The same way I would have that conversation with a white business or an Arab business or a Korean business, we have that conversation with Black businesses as well.
Respecting the Black dollar. People don't respect the Black dollar. However, we're one of the largest consumers out there. Now it has been reported that Michael Jordan is in 2017, will have some Nike Jordans, Air Jordans for $19.99. And well, these are facts.
Yeah, they are. And we'll be in line for $19.99. He'll probably release them right around between January 15th and April 15th, tax time.
Respecting the Black dollar. Even our own don't respect the Black dollar. Like you mentioned, I gave an example of Nike. You have a problem with that. Now is your opportunity to express to the people on IntellectualRadio.com why they should respect the Black dollar.
And again, I'm going to take it back. It's not just the dollar, it's the time, right? I mean, the same way that we put focus on where we're spending our money, we have to put focus on where we're spending our time. If I'm going to work for Google every day, every week for 80 hours a week, I'm spending majority of my time at Google, and Google may or may not be reinvesting back into my community. So the same way you have to look at how you're spending your money, you have to also look at how you're spending your time. So I say respect Black capital, not just the dollar. Black capital, that's human capital, natural capital, physical capital, experiential capital. Respect Black capital. And why is that so important? That is important because right now what we're seeing is when we create economic opportunities in our community, that is going to help really alleviate the poverty issues that we're faced with. When we talk about Chicago in general, and you have 94% of Black males between the ages of 16 to 24 that are out of work, who's going to employ them? When we have media that drives a certain stereotype of young Black males being thugs, selling drugs because they look a certain way. I am a mentor to many young Black males as well as females, and that just that's not the case. It's not the case. So when we keep our dollars and our time within our community, we create opportunities for the people in our community. It starts there. When we keep money and our time inside of our community, we're able to support candidates that we want to see represent us in the White House. You have to pay. We live in a capitalist society. You have to pay for everything, and we don't have money. Right now, we say, I hear all the time, we throw around, we have $1.3 trillion in buying power. But what does that really mean if all of your money is tied to the oppressor? It's because as soon as you speak out, as soon as you say something, your job may be at jeopardy. Your reputation is at jeopardy. If you talk anything about Black empowerment, you really are doing so with the potential of your own demise. So a lot of our monies are tied into these corporations that we work for. So is that really a true indication of our wealth? Is it a true indication of our wealth?
It's hard to say keep your money within when you have no resources or black resources. You have a lot of outside resources. If you look at the community, give you an example, Chinatown.
Right.
Their dollar, they don't leave that community until 10 days out. Maybe even longer it stays within. You look at, let's say, Inglewood. Now it kind of stays a little bit longer.
Right.
But in the Austin community, it's like 3 cents of every dollar that stays into the community, because you have a dwindling number of Black businesses. If it's hard to find a Black business in certain communities that you can support. You can possibly disagree, but
no. I don't disagree. I think that our resources are fragmented. They're all over the place, right? So
But how can you contain it into one to what you just said?
Right, through, okay, so things that we do and the level of first level of sacrifice that we have to make. I always think about the Montgomery bus boycott, right? I always go back to that sacrifice. They did it for 13 months, that boycott, not 13 hours, not 13 days, 13 months. And they traveled miles and miles. They carpooled, handled all sorts of weather conditions. And now we complain about traveling 20 minutes to a store across town because I'm tired, right? Right now, it seems that we're not willing to take the same level of sacrifice that our ancestors have. As far as products and services being available, we have everything that we need. The issue is that a lot of our businesses are not making people aware. They're not creating marketing strategies to reach the audience that is looking for them. And so that's some of the things that I do with the BRIJ Embassy, Cassiopeia does with the Black Mall providing a directory where you can go on there and you can find whatever business you need for your products or services. The problem is are you going to take the next step and travel from the west side of Chicago to the south side of Chicago to get what it is that you need? So we have what we need, but it's fragmented. It's not as accessible as walking to a Jewel or the Arab corner store. But every time you're putting your money into that, you need to ask yourself, what are you funding or what are you not funding?
I have to ask this question because this is kind of sort of a hot button issue.
Mm-hmm.
Underground.
Okay.
Not up front, but underground. I know it's a Roman Morrow question, Rhea. So here's the question. It used to be a growing number of Black-owned and operated gas stations.
Mm.
Now it's zero. It's close to zero.
Yeah.
What happened in a person like yourself? How can we get back to Black-owned and operated gas stations? What is the message we're sending? Because you see Indians combining their money, they buy a franchise, bam, there you go. They have Subway, they have 7-Eleven, they have these. Why we can't do the same thing with gas stations?
Gas stations, grocery stores, I would add that, those are natural resources, natural capital. And it means I think you and I have had this conversation, we have to take people back to the basics. Just take them back to the basics to even practice cooperative economics. You have parents kicking their children out as soon as they turn after their 18th birthday, like, you grown now. Like, instead of, hey, you're going to go to college for 4 years, you're going to build on your education, then you're going to come back here, and then you're going to save your money, and then you're going to reinvest in some property. We're not looking at building wealth. We're not looking at building generational wealth. So right now, one of the things that I do is to try to make those numbers real for people. This is how much money you're spending with Black businesses. Now, the next step is, where are we missing? What industries are we missing from? Natural capital, oil, food. Those are critical things. So when we start talking about reinvesting back into community, whether we're talking to these major corporations that we spend our dollars in and saying, hey, we want a percentage given back, we know that that's going to go into development of gas stations, or that can go into developments of grocery stores. So it really, just to answer your question, we have to take people back to the basics of what cooperative economics looks like, because it's going over their heads. And hey, if you take $200 or you take $1,000, we all pull together, we can come up with the capital that we need to start, opening a gas station, opening a grocery store, things of that nature.
We're running out of time, but I have to ask this question. Mm-hmm. The selling of Black-owned and operated media outlets, it has been a growing number. Bob Johnson sold BET. Our Black Voices, blackvoices.com recently was sold to Univision, I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. And we're constantly selling out, and our voices are not being heard the way it should be. Mm-hmm. And we have people like BET, TV One, camouflaging.
Right. As
they're black owned and operated. So how can we get back to black owned and operated media outlets to discuss certain issues like this?
I think it's IntellectualRadio.com right now. This is a primary example. We have access to the resources that we need to set up and become independent and start, once again, like I said, going back to the basics. We are starting over every single generation with the same issues, and we are not learning anything from history. We're not learning anything from history. We keep doing the same thing over and over. So right now, Roman, unfortunately, we are at ground zero across the board with everything that we're doing. So it starts with models that are working. Intellectual radio is working. Urban broadcast media, Indigo, Chicago Defender, all fighting to stay alive. But this is where the influence of the people come in, and they have to understand their support in time, meaning tuning in because of ratings, and their money, supporting when we're having fundraisers or for advertising. So just taking people back to the basics and understanding the importance of this, because this is our narrative and this is what tells our stories, and it's how we're going to see ourselves and how the world is going to see it.
How can someone get a hold of you?
They can get in contact with me by going to www.TheBRIJ, spelled B as in boy, R as in Robert, I as in igloo, J, embassy@gmail.com.
Thank you so much. Very inspirational. That's going to do it for us. Don't be a stranger. Thanks for the drive.
Absolutely. Thank you.
No problem. Stay right there. Okay. That's going to do it for us on intellectualradio.com/iHeart radio station, The Drive at 5. Thanks to Earl Winfrey, our executive producer, Rhea Ray Harris, who is up next with Straight No Chaser. You guys have a wonderful week.